Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 2011. We're going to be taking a look at Estas Tonne and he's going to be performing the Song of the Golden Dragon. So let's get Estas up on screen and see how he gets on. I'm just going to jump in here on this dynamic breakdown that we have because it is such a massive part of this performance. is the way that Estas changes the sound of what he's playing dynamically. In the intro, starting off so quietly and being so restrained with the playing, just setting the atmosphere and the mood for the piece, but then going to a sound that is about as aggressive as you can get on the classical guitar, and obviously playing fingerstyle here. The technique is top notch as well, but the thing about this performance and Estas as a guitarist, you get the impression that this is something that obviously you can't fake. He hasn't thought, what are people going to like the sound of? How should I look? He's just being himself. And that is the point about true artistry. But also, the reason that Estas is so technically good at playing isn't because he's tried to get technically good without any goal or focal point. It's because he's got as good as he needs to get to have his own artistic expression in order to play in such a way that speaks to him on a personal level. And that's all the focus has ever been. And this is what you'll find with the top artists, that they are impressive on a technical standpoint and from a technical standpoint because of the things they're playing, but they've never just set a goal to get really good at a technique for no particular point. Also, I think anyone can tell when somebody's got their technical ability up to a particular level for the sake of showing off, because there isn't any art in it. It is that combination that I've already mentioned of technical ability and expression through dynamics. And it's something that is present throughout this whole performance. It is not all played at one level. And this is sometimes what turns people off from players who do play at an impressively technical level, but there's no expression in there. There's no dynamic change. It's all played at one level. And whenever you're listening to somebody talk, if they are talking to you with no dynamic expression in their voice, it becomes monotone and boring to listen to because there's nothing in there. There's no expression. Whereas when you're listening to somebody who is expressive while they talk, it's easier to listen to them because there is expression in there. There's something to grab onto. It's exactly the same with music. Music is like listening to somebody talk through the guitar in this particular instance, but it is a musical conversation, and that's why people are listening to it. This is the difference between just playing techniques and applying techniques to artistry. We've got Estas playing through a composition here, which, by the way, because we haven't got a drummer or a click track here, he's controlling the ebb and flow of the performance. So in some sections, he'll be going along as if there is a tempo involved, but then slowing it down and taking you on that journey. He does describe himself as a modern day troubadour, and it really does come across that way with the level of artistry, but also you can tell that he's just playing the way that he wants to play and sounding the way he wants to sound. And if people like it, then great. But if they don't, he's still going to just keep making the same noises with his guitar. People say, right, I'm going to give up playing the guitar now because they've watched Estas playing. And this is something that I do want to address because so many people say this underneath videos of great guitar players, but guitar players who are just playing guitar the way that they want to in order for them to express themselves artistically. And that's all they're doing. And Estas, I assure you, is not lying awake at night thinking, oh, I wish that I could play like Van Halen, or I wish that I could sing like Rick Emmett or Steve Perry or Pavarotti. And Pavarotti wasn't lying awake at night thinking, I wish I could play guitar like Jimi Hendrix. Every artist is different, so they're just following their own path, and if you think it's really impressive and it speaks to you on a personal level, artistically as well, then that's great. But the person isn't playing that way because they're trying to be a different person. They are playing like themselves because that is their own personality, their own expression. And if you make it your mission to try and play exactly like Estas Tonne, for example, you're never ever going to achieve that goal because you're not him. and he can be himself so much better than you'll ever be able to be him. So it's just a losing battle anyway to even think down those lines. But I hope you guys can understand the concept that I'm trying to explain, because it's the reason why there's so much diversity in the world, so many great artists that are so different, because everyone followed their own path. They weren't trying to all copy one person. Anyone that's out there that does play the guitar and watches a video like this, it should inspire you to go down your own avenue and take on the influences that you like, of course, but put your own spin on it, because then you might be an artist that other people watch and think, wow, look at the artistry on show there, because they are communicating to me on their own personal level, because that's what it's all about. Getting into the performance elements that we have here, I've already mentioned the fingerstyle on the right hand. The thing that you want to be looking out for, and you probably would have noticed it early in the video, when Estas' hand is towards the light, you can see how white the nails are on his right hand, and it's commonly something done with fingerstyle players is to glue on acrylic nails and then shape them, so that instead of having to wear finger picks, and sometimes when players do grow out their nails, the nails, especially if you do play a lot, can be weak and they can break off. Whereas if you put acrylic nails on and glue them and shape them, you can shape them to the perfect shape that you want for your own fingerstyle playing. Getting into the tone as well, because classical guitar here, of course, with nylon strings, but a lot of reverb on the sound. So it fills in a lot of that frequency and sound between notes, especially when you're building the atmosphere. You'll know that it sounds like being in a cave. All of those sound waves seem to be bouncing off the walls and reverberating. It's such a great sound that we have here. Obviously, all intentional to build that atmosphere in the intro as well, where we have Estas hitting his bracelets on the guitar violently in order to give you that whole atmosphere and the ambience of the piece that's about to be played. There is so much in here from an artistic perspective. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is the way that Estas has customized his guitar. You might have already noticed this underneath the strings on that right hand, because of the way that he plays and is sometimes violent in that dynamic change that he has. So open dynamically, he has this thin layer of foam or impact absorption underneath the strings, where his nails, or the nails that he's got glued on, will be striking the body of the guitar. And when you're listening to it and watching it, you can see how violent he is with that technique. So he's just had to put something underneath those strings to protect the body of the guitar, but not only that, to protect his fingers. Let's get back into this video. We'll watch it all the way to the end. And there we have it. And then he goes back to tuning his guitar because he's so aggressive in places that he does lose a bit of the tuning on that low E string, but not so much as it affects the performance. The thing to look out for as well is the way that he transitions between the rhythm work that he goes through with the right hand, and it's all in the right hand here. Obviously, synchronization between left hand and right hand is imperative for this performance to be at this kind of level, but the technique on the right hand, being able to switch and transition from the rhythm playing into the fingerstyle, is so seamless the way that he can do that, and he does it so accurately, especially coming from such a wild action of strumming with the right hand to then get straight into that fingerstyle, and it gives him access dynamically to so many different options which he utilizes all the time throughout the whole performance, and this is why it's so interesting to listen to. The other thing is that this whole piece is in E minor, so it means that by hammering that low E string in sections, everybody's got a reference point so they can follow along and they can listen to the melody of the lead notes and some of the fingerstyle that Estas gets into in relation to the low E string. So it means that everybody listening to this knows where they are on the journey, and it's such an important part of composing and being able to take people on that journey and giving them a reference point, because once you lose people and go into a different key and don't play the root note of that key, people don't know what all of these lead notes are related to, and they get a little bit lost on the journey. Whereas here, from start to finish, we're talking about a 9-minute performance. You're totally on board the whole time. The other thing is that you can still hear, with the aggressive nature of that rhythm with the right hand, the nails striking the guitar, even though that impact is being absorbed by that layer of foam that I mentioned. So it would be another reason why that foam is there, because if that wasn't there and Estas was striking the body of the guitar, it would be so loud it would then detract from the performance. Like I said, there is so much technique in the right hand, and a lot of people might ask, is this a flamenco style of playing? Because it does sound like that in places, and yes it is, because flamenco is purely fingerstyle. You might have somebody who plays with a pick and it sounds flamenco, but it technically isn't, because they're using a pick and not playing purely fingerstyle. Whereas here, we do have that aggressive sound in there as well, with the nails, like I said, smashing against the body of the guitar, and having such a dynamic range between that soft, subtle picking in the intro, a little bit of side-to-side vibrato in there as well. Just to end with a final thought, because looking at the people gathering around and listening to this proves to me that anybody can have an appreciation and an awareness of art being produced, because going back to my earlier example of guys that can shred on a guitar, play millions of notes a second, but nobody will stop and listen to it because it might be dynamically flat, or there might not be any true artistry in there. But when something like this happens, everyone stops and everyone tunes in and listens to it. And we had that girl who was sitting down and she had her eyes closed because there was something deeper to get into. It wasn't just music, it was art. And I think that goes across all mediums. So you can talk about art in a general sense, but musically here, everybody is tapping into something collectively, but I'm sure there are plenty of people here listening who don't play an instrument, and they're not tapping into it because they are musicians and they're appreciating the fingerstyle technique and the hammer-ons and the pull-offs and the classical side-to-side vibrato in the intro. They're not thinking about that. They're tapping into something on a deeper level artistically, and I'm sure people don't even know what that is. They can't put their finger on why this is great and amazing and is so emotive, but it just is. And that's the great thing about music and art in general, is that it can bring people together and they can all tap into this thing that nobody knows what it is, but you just know when it's happening. Just another thing that sometimes when you see the smoke going through the screen, you would be forgiven for thinking that the fretboard is on fire, but that's the incense burning in the headstock of the guitar. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep their suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!